A job as a pizza delivery driver can be dangerous, but I'm sure most of you already knew that. However, my job is dangerous for different reasons. What do I mean by that? Well, to start, call me Pete, though most people in town just call me the Pizza Man. Some even call me Pizza Pete. Now, as for which town I live in, I'm not going to say, for two reasons. One, the fewer people that are here, the easier my job is. And two, our town is dangerous, not just for the unusual reasons I'm going to describe, but also the fact that we have a lot of crime in our area. You see, people in my town are fucking crazy. I've been stabbed by someone because I didn't bring them a cold bottle of soda. Yes, that actually happened to me. Now that you at least have a vague idea of the kind of area I live in, let me tell you where I work. I work at a mom and pop pizza place. The owners named it after themselves, so I can't tell you what the name's actually called. But for the purpose of this post and any future ones, I'll refer to it as formaggio. That means cheese in Italian. And I'll also be referring to the owners, aka my bosses, as Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio. Their pizza shop happens to be the only pizza place in town, unless you happen to count places like grocery stores where you can get frozen pizzas. And while those pizzas are alright, they pale in comparison to the pizzas Formaggio's makes. But enough of that. You're probably wanting me to elaborate on what I mean by unusual reasons. I mentioned that the people in town where I live are nuts, but it's not just that. The town seems to attract crazy on top of all the other weird shit. And sure, occasionally a relatively normal person will come to our town, but those type of people clearly want to get through it as quickly as they can. Even rarer are the supposed normal people who decide they want to move here, usually because they want to live somewhere quiet. What usually ends up happening to these types of people is that they turn out to be the craziest people of all, or they go missing. As a matter of fact, the town's junkyard is filled with abandoned, mangled cars of people that went missing. Sometimes there'll be a license plate left over that the local police are able to figure out a missing person's address and get in contact with their loved ones. If they don't have a wallet or something like that that got left behind, they could look through. I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the cops keep the money that they find in these wallets and purses for themselves, but at least they are somewhat competent at their jobs, so I'll give them that. While there have been cars found that have been damaged in abnormal ways, most cars are damaged in car wrecks. I know that seems like a no-brainer, but we actually have some pretty serious drunk driver problems. Anyway, I should probably expand on the whole abnormal ways things. For one, the cars always seem to be found far away from the road. Not just far away, but places it almost seem impossible for them to get, without a helicopter lifting them or something like that. I even saw one police report saying that they found a car stuck in a tree. I should probably mention the trees around here are mostly oak and range from 80 to 100 feet in height, so it would be almost impossible for it to end up there on its own. That's just one incident. There was another where a car had been found that looked like something had pushed the front and back ends of it together. In that case, a body was recovered. Luckily, his wallet was still there. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to identify. But people going missing isn't the strange thing that happens in our town. It's when they come back, usually after about a month or so. We tend to call these people the returned, for lack of a better word anyway. At first, you might want to call them zombies, but the thing is, these people aren't technically undead. And while I know that word doesn't necessarily apply to something undead, I don't want you to think that I'm talking about a flesh eater. That being said, the returned are extremely dangerous. I'm going to tell you about my encounter I had with one yesterday. It was around 6 a.m. when I woke up and then went outside. Mr. Formaggio has me come in between 8 and 8:30 to do prepping for the day. Since my shifts usually end up being 10 to 12 hours, I'm usually too tired to get any exercise when I get back, so I choose to do it in the morning. Anyway, I had been walking around town for about half an hour. During this time, no shop had opened up yet. They all wait until sunrise to do that. I had walked to the center of town, where Formaggio's is located, by the way, when I noticed someone on the other side of the street. They were facing away from me and making these jittery movements. Thinking it was just a meth head or something, I continued on my walk. It didn't take long for me to realize that this person was trying to track me. Annoyed, I considered heading back to my place. I do keep a pocket knife and gun on me, so if this person did try something, I wouldn't have much of an issue fighting them off. However, I didn't want it to come to that. I'd rather not have to stab or shoot someone. As I was considering heading home, the person turned to face me. The first thing I noticed about them was their glowing yellow eyes. They stepped closer under a streetlight, and I was able to see everything about them. The person in question turned out to be female. Her skin was a sickly pale color, and her hair was blonde, with multiple patches of gray running through it. We looked at each other for a few moments before she made this rattling shriek. Her body contorted, making several loud cracks, until her hands and feet were on the ground in a spider-like pose. Quickly, she started crawling across the street towards me. I didn't hesitate to pull my gun out, then shoot her point blank in the head. She fell over, and after twitching for a few moments, fell still. By this time, the sun was starting to show itself, and several people had come outside, no doubt having heard the gunshots, one of whom was the town sheriff named Chuck. I made sure to put my gun away before he approached me, still in his pajamas. He looked down at the woman's body, and then to me and asked, "Another one?" "Yep," I replied. He sighed and then said, "God damn it, how do these people always end up like this?" "Beats me. Oh, just so you know, it was one of those spider ones again." I figured from the way her limbs were bent. "Do you need me to come to the station and answer any questions?" That won't be necessary, Pete. We can take care of the body. But we will be ordering pizza later today, so you'll be coming by later anyway. Speaking of which, what's the specialty this week? I haven't had a chance to check it out." "Well, I'm glad you asked. It's actually a seasoned feta cheese pizza with sausage and black olives." "I might have to give that a try." "I highly recommend it. And, oh shit, it's almost 7. I gotta get home so I can get ready for work." "Oh, no problem, Pete. Take care." "You too," I told Chuck, then started sprinting back towards my house. I know that seemed like a pretty mundane reaction to what I just described, but as you've probably figured out, this isn't the first time something like this has happened in our town. Hell, that wasn't even my first time encountering something like that. Nor am I the only one in town who has had something like that happen to them. Ask around town if people have witnessed anything strange. Chances are you'll get a story like mine, if not one even weirder. Anyway, thankfully, I didn't run into any more trouble on the way home. However, I did notice some things that were amiss. Mostly, it seemed to be moving shapes in the woods nearby, but I couldn't really make them out due to how far away they were. All I noticed about them was that they had glowing eyes similar to the woman I saw. The only difference was that their eyes were glowing in different colors. Not just yellow. One particular pair of eyes gave me an uneasy feeling. They were a pair of amber eyes that almost seemed to flicker like a flame. The reason they made me feel uneasy was that I hadn't seen any creature with those eyes, and I hadn't heard anything about anyone who had seen it either. I decided to ignore it and head inside. An hour or so later, I'd gotten ready and then headed to work. Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio greeted me when I arrived. Hey, Pete, heard about what happened. Are you all right? Mr. Formaggio asked. Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for asking, though. Besides prepping, is there anything I should know about? Oh, Carl called in another catering order, and he said he's going to want 5 of the specialty pizzas and a Caesar salad, Miss Formaggio said. Carl is the one who owns the gun store in town. Most people know him as Crazy Carl, and while there is something off about him, he's ironically our best and most polite customer. At least I hadn't had any issues with the guy. In fact, he saved several people around town from the returned and other creatures. Will do. I'll be sure to deliver the order to him later today. Oh, by the way, we'll probably get a call from Chuck wanting some of the specialty pizzas later today. Thanks for letting us know, Pete. Can you do us a favor and make 20 more portions than usual for when he calls? Mr. Formaggio asked. I will do, I said, then got to work. After preparing everything and heating up the ovens, I made sure to set up the tables. We actually have a pretty nice sit-down area for the people who feel like eating inside the restaurant. Anyway, the day went pretty well at first. Then around 5, Carl and Chuck called in their orders. It took about an hour to make all the pizzas, and I was the one to deliver them. The station and Carl's store are located near each other, so it wasn't much of an issue for me to deliver them there. I usually end up using Mr. Formaggio's car to make the deliveries. Crazy Carl's was the first place I stopped off at. I walked in his store carrying the 5 pizzas and a bottle of Coke. Pizza Pete, I'm glad to see you. I've been waiting all day for these bad boys, he said, taking the pizzas and soda from me. I hope you enjoyed, Carl. I'd love to chat for a few minutes, but I gotta make a delivery to the station. Take care and be careful. I heard there may be a thunderstorm today. I will. I actually had a run-in with a return this morning. I heard about that. I myself had a run-in with one of them flying creatures. Oh, I heard about those. When did it happen? A few nights ago. Son of a bitch woke me up like at 3 in the morning by landing on my roof. It tried attacking me as soon as I stepped outside, but you know how quick I am with my shots. My shotgun got the bastard in one of its legs. I would have finished it off, but that pussy flew into the woods. I see. I'll be sure to be on my guard then. Later. See you, Carl told me. After that, I headed to the station. I was lucky enough to have Chuck approach my car. How are things at the station? I asked after putting my window down and handing him the food. Been going pretty good. We'll need to make more of that special ammo, though. How things been for you? Since the return incident, I mean. Oh, I delivered to Carl's today. He told me that one of those flying creatures attacked him a few nights ago. Can't say I'm surprised. You'd think he'd move closer to town by now instead of living out in the woods. Well, everyone knows the man enjoys his solitude. Anyway, I gotta get back to the store. Enjoy the food. Judging by this wonderful smell, I will. Take care, Pete, he told me. I waved goodbye, then headed back to Formaggio's. I worked a couple more hours until my shift ended around 8:30. When I headed out, it was starting to rain. By the time I got home, it was pouring. The rain has still been going on since last night. Fortunately, I have the weekends off, except for when I get called in, so I've just been playing games all day. I'll update you if anything else happens. Remember, stay safe and have fun. This is Pizza Pete signing out.